the hubs for startups. A survey says that 91.1% German startups are being affected due to the COVID-19 crisis, and 69.7% of them will face severe threat of existence. A similar study done in India by one of the industry associations, NASSCOM, which says that 9 out of 10 startups will face a massive decline in revenue, ranging from 40% to almost and 69.7%. It also says that 40% severe threat of existence. Of the similar study done in India by one of the industry associations, NASSCOM, which says that 9 out of 10 startups will face a massive decline in revenue, ranging. Please, I want to welcome 40% and give your opening remarks belonging to them that 40%. How do you see the ecosystem of startups or the similar COVID-19 crisis, and what is the situation in Nepal?
So the situation is not in Nepal is not very different from compared to the rest of the world. So in Nepal also everything stopped with the lockdown, and startups and businesses have suffered massively. But what we have also seen is a lot of innovation that's happening in the startup world, and also there are clear sectors that are getting deeply impacted in the negative way, and there are startup and companies that are getting affected in a positive way. And there are these smart startups that are sort of innovating their business models to suit the situation. For example, I know that there is an online payment gateway company that has moved towards delivering essentials, and there was a company which was launching a platform for curating products, have quickly moved towards providing educational services. So there are different things that we see right now. One is there are companies or early stage companies who are closing down their businesses or working with very minimum workforce. And then there are organizations who are changing their business model. And then there are businesses who are launching right now and capturing market, because this is the best time to capture market. So we see all these trends. And the first one, the companies which are on hold or, working on their financial runway to survive, hold the major chunk of the startup organizations. So that's what I see in Nepal.
Excellent. I want to come to Mr. Bharat Ramani. If you can unmute yourself, sir. How do you see this situation from your perspective? That how is the startup ecosystem being affected, and your opening remarks?
Yeah, my name is Bharat Ramani from Uplift Innovation. Our focus is to build an accelerator for the people on the autism spectrum. So we are looking at startups to invest in technologies which can improve the quality of life for people on the autism spectrum. This has been, these are the people who are at the bottom of the pyramid in terms of learning, training, and education is concerned. So we need to really focus on identifying the right kind of startups in the space, which can lead to better quality of life for people on the autism spectrum. Currently, I see that many of the startup ecosystems in US, they have gone from, being online or, on site to online. And that transition has happened, I think, because, we in a better way compared to many other countries. But the biggest problem is, the investors are not coming into the ecosystem. And, especially for new startups which are coming, there's a big challenge for investors to raise the money. So my thought process or my suggestion to many of the startups is to preserve cash. That's going to be very, very important, for them in terms of what they are spending. If they don't need to spend on something, they can postpone it. They should do that. That is very, very important. Second thing is look at revenue models where you can work with clients and maybe give them discounts, but try to work with clients. And this can be the best time where some of the clients are also are ready to give time to startups. That's a good thing which is happening, that so potential clients are able to, startups are now able to reach many of the potential clients because of the situation. There is somewhat some saving in time of travel, and so they are able to access and reach those clients. So the best way for them is to grow their revenues through clients by giving them additional discount, or by convincing them that they can be good partnerships between the startups and the potential clients. So this is my thought moving forward: preserve cash and try to get revenues from clients.
Thank you. Excellent. I think you already touched two important solutions to it. I want to come to Colin. I think Philip. Philip, if you can unmute yourself and give us an account of the Western, the impact in the Western countries' startup ecosystem the COVID-19 has brought, and then how are Western ecosystems reacting and responding to this crisis?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to speak within my locus of understanding, which isn't just Western, it's US and maybe even New York specific. And it's funny because my friend Brad here is in Princeton, not far from me. But the work that we do is that we help support international companies in their exploration of the US market, seeking primarily traction and funding opportunities here in the States. And we do that by helping them with their sales and business development approaches here in market. We also support various trade organizations around the world, and the way that I got connected with this group is through the Global Startup Ecosystem, of which I used to be one of the entrepreneurs in residences there. My perspective in the way that the US and New York is responding to this is that there has been a lot of confusion, and I believe that confusion has to do with a lack of unity around our various organizations of leadership and structures that we've put in place in the US, quite frankly. But the other reason is that the way that we've been building our venture ecosystem has been one that does not have in place the sustainability necessary to handle catastrophes like this. We have built a sort of mechanism for startup growth that mostly serves the will and expectations of the venture community. And I'm not sort of going to say that VCs are somehow like the problem in this mix. They're just sort of a part of the general expectation that growth happens quickly, return happens quickly, and it needs to be faster and faster every day. So whenever a company does get funding, the first expectation is that you're going to get more than you need, and you're going to spend it faster than you think you should. And so something like COVID happens, and you realize very quickly that the threshold for error in that model is very short. It's 30 to 60 days, maybe 30 to 90 days, right? And so any kind of major disruption to that, let's call it runway, because that's what it is called, forces us to realize that while this works, it only works in a perfect world, or a perfect world that we've imagined even further in the US economy. And so there is a lot of really difficult things taking place right now, and a lot of investors are rightfully so hunkering down and protecting their assets, right? They're protecting their portfolio because they're like, oh no, like we didn't give them capital that gave them 3 months of wiggle room, right? Because that's not what we wanted from them, right? We wanted them to just barely get to that next round so we could use the minimum amount of capital to maximize our return. And so what I do hope is happening is two things. One, that the startups that were never meant to fly don't ever get off the ground, so the damage is minimized. That they're given the opportunity, in some ways, while it is painful, the grace to reimagine what their future may have looked like before they got up into the air. And the second thing is that there's a new thread of the necessity of entrepreneurship, which has happened in the past, where when things have gotten particularly bad, and you look around and you don't actually see an option for your life that is being offered to you by the society and economy, then you start saying, well, I guess I have to build myself, right? There's no other, it's survival entrepreneurship in a way that, again, is also a very difficult thing, but the result can oftentimes be reimagined structures. And I might be taking a leap here in saying, look at the sort of disparity and challenges that we're seeing in our society as through human rights issues, through the protests right now. I don't think that we can just say that these things are happening in an echo chamber. I think that they're inevitably interlocked, you know, at a lower level. And so what's going on with COVID and how businesses are being impacted, plus what's going on right now with the racism and the challenges that we're seeing from that, I do believe that they're built on a foundation that has serious sustainability challenges.
This will have impact on the startup ecosystem there, you mean to say. I'll come back to you with more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll come back to you with more. I want to invite Colin here. Colin, giving an African perspective to it. Colin, can you hear us? If you can unmute. And
yes, absolutely. Yes,
how do you
I can hear you.
How do you see entrepreneurs? Because Africa is a region with a mix of advanced, or not like very advanced, but emerging, poor, and different countries. Now, how do you see startup ecosystem was contributing in Africa? And during this crisis, how is it also affecting now?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, the startup ecosystem. First of all, I am Collins Nabuku, and I represent the global startup ecosystem as the community ambassador for Lagos, Nigeria. I am also the special envoy to the State of African Diaspora. And besides that, I own a startup, 2 startups actually. So I am properly positioned in the startup ecosystem. And the startup ecosystem was on an exponential ride in Africa just before the COVID hit. And so there's just major impact. I mean, very, very recognizable impact. I want to describe it in 2 ways. Of course, it's been very disruptive, but also expected. Some people also expected that there was going to be a major shift, actually probably ushering in the 4th industrial revolution. However, that was going to come, but we expected there was going to be a major disruption sometime, however. So if you look at the impact, it's been, I want to just look at it in 2 ways, the short-term impact and the long-term impact. In the short run, it's very negative and very disruptive in that startups that were at the early stage of investment, that were already having conversations with investors became very uncertain and very irresponsive to make decisions during the 2 months and 3 months of lockdown, a global lockdown, you know. And so, let me just go to the positive. Like, you know, in the ecosystem, it had a very great impact, you know, for those of us in the startup, in the sense that you have now more access to investors, to decision makers, to board meetings, because excuse me, pre-COVID, you would have to, you know, arrange for special trips and you have to travel. By the way, Philip and I are in the same, you know, we used to work in the same, in the same company. I remember back a few months ago, we were about the only ones doing Zoom, getting teamwork done. But right now, even the government in Africa are on Zoom. These are things that wouldn't happen before now. I mean, I personally, I'm just sharing my personal experience. Investors go closer to you because right now everyone is at home. There are no offices. It's his home office. You have more time to interact with your investors, with your team. And of course, teams across the world. Remember that we are now on remote work mode. So everyone is working remotely. So you realize that there's a lot of cut in prices, in charges. Developers dropped their charges and they became faster because right now everyone is home, everyone is on the software, is on the cloud, and work was delivered faster than ever before. Work was cheaper than ever before. Interactions got faster. You realize that you could even right now speak to the head of the government and get decisions made and get you know, signatures signed over the cloud. These are processes that required bureaucratic methods to get them done, you know. So and then you see a lot of fundings that were quicker to access, you know. Right here in Nigeria and of course Africa, there's been a lot of funding. There's been a lot of COVID intervention funds, which even give startups quicker access to funding and help them to scale their businesses. So I'm looking at it in the long term that these are going to like the relationship built, the new alliances and partnerships and collaborations are going to pay off big time in the future, and they're going to pay even bigger than the negative disruptions that we felt. That's my opinion.
Thank you. I want to come to Dr. Tousim Malik. Dr. Tousim Malik has launched and successfully led the All India Muslim Startup Business Network, All India Muslim Business and Startup Network. And during this crisis, Dr. Malik has also launched Halal Engines Network, where he's boosting and saying that through this Halal Engines Network concept, we can bring $1 trillion or $1 billion. So we will listen to it more carefully, but we can contribute $1 trillion out of the $5 trillion economic GDP like of the country that India is expecting. Dr. Malik, your view on the COVID-19 crisis or any crisis, a disruption, economic, social, political disruption versus startups, because startups cannot use any excuse of being threatened or extinct. How do you see that the startup ecosystem should behave now and is behaving and responding?
Thank you, gentlemen, for inviting me for this webinar. I see everything in a positive light. We are dynamic, human beings are dynamic in nature according to Maslow's law. So sometime or the other, we'll hit a crisis point. But when I see COVID, yes, it has created a lot of issues, but it will actually make people realize about environment. Okay. The climate change was very critical part of everything, but we just ignored for a long time. We entered the wilderness of the world, and where we encountered bats and stuff, and we ended up with COVID. So now we have to remember that we can't play around with nature. Okay, we have paid a big price because of COVID. Now I, over the years I've become American, and in America we have a hustling culture. Okay, that's where is like the genesis of this country, America. Like whenever there's a situation crisis, because when you see all the immigrants, when they came to America, they had some kind of a problem at home. And I lived in 3 continents and a couple of countries, but the American culture is about hustling. Any problem we face, we try to overcome. So based on the positivity, I just want to make a statement is like, during the pandemic, you have to look not out of the box, not out of inside the box. We have to be in opportunities, and you have to grab that opportunity. And a startup, now the problems with startups, as you remember, we have been talking for a long time, they always chase investors for money. They don't chase customers. That's a problem with them, right? You can't cook your food on other people's gas because they can stop at any time and it would be uncooked food. So all advice I gave to people is, you need to hustle, you need to chase customers. Unfortunately, most of these startups, they're looking for easy exit of picking up money. That's one. Now, again, we went back, and when I came from America, I started this All India Muslim Business Startup Network. I spotted an opportunity, even in America, that I created America's second largest competition called the Muslim Spelling Bee, because American Muslim consumer was worth $170 billion. And I had lost $100,000 during the 2008-9 crisis. So I used to drive a cab. I didn't cry that, I've lost everything, but I created something. So there's a statement in America, it's called rising from Phoenix, like rising like Phoenix, from the ashes. So you work hard, it pays you dividend. Now, when we developed the All India Muslim business ecosystem, we wanted to get 15% of India's population with the government of India schemes and connect with them and build this whole ecosystem. There were a lot of communities started following us after that. So it was an ecosystem where we were doing HNI networking conferences. We established 41 incubation centers at minority schools. Tell them don't be in donation. In fact, before this COVID, we started one roti company, and it was featured in one of India's premier news channel. It went viral. I was invited to Indonesia. We signed up a deal actually. I was on Indonesian
Thank you. I think you got mute or something.
During all this thing, we wanted to go into the venture capital round. Now, problem with venture capital is you have to pick somebody else's money. There's a cost of picking money, then maintaining that money, and then giving out that money, right? During that time, there was a big crisis in the community in Bangalore. 24 Ponzi schemes. The big one was IMA and Hira Gold. They sucked up at least a couple of billion dollars from the community, and that money actually belongs to country of India, because that money could be invested in, you know, infrastructure, whatever. So we decided that there's an alternative options of starting an angel network, which we have been actually doing this thing for a long time in hindsight. And we thought COVID is a, you know, everyone's struggling, but sometimes you need just a hand holding thing, some a whiff of positivity. And we launched it. And bingo, it's been featured over 300 news channels. And every other day, I'm actually giving an interview. Now, your statement about $1 trillion to Indian, see, last year, Prime Minister Modi ji talked about $5 trillion economy of by 2024, right? And now 1/5 of India's population is Muslims, right? And the other thing is, we are we have a fantastic geographical location. After China, we are the superpower in this Asia, right? So we wanted to support our government and get, you know, India's location into manufacturing, because, you know, the government of India recently talked about, you know, in manufacturing India. Majority of products in India are ethical, right? Which can be used differently. In fact, there are two Jain girls in Gujarat, IBA, the company, the Gujarati Jains, they started halal cosmetics.
Right.
Because they saw
Dr.
an
Malik,
opportunity.
I'm really sorry. So we have excellent views you're sharing. I'll come back to you. Mr. Bharat Ramani has to leave because he has another meeting. I'll just take one question because he's talking from autism perspective. And Mr. Bharat Ramani, if you can come, if you unmute and share your views on how do you, because the autism and how this startup ecosystem for especially people like especially privileged people, and then what are the policy solutions that you are expecting with along with whatever suggestion recommendation you want to say. Today's topic is collaboration and innovation. So how do we enable ecosystems to promote collaboration and innovation, and then what is the policy support, because this is a crisis situation and policy support is the core. There cannot be, no entrepreneur can survive without any policy support. This now we have to realize, and we have to ask and demand from our policymakers. Your suggestion and views on that.
Thanks, Akram. So, you know, 1% of the world's population is in the whole autism spectrum. And when you look at this, so we're talking about 75 million people in the world who are affected. And my whole thought process is COVID has taught us very interesting thing in terms of collaboration. Today, you see competing pharmaceutical companies and you know, researchers and everybody collaborating together to bring in solutions for COVID. I am looking at the same thing happening for you know, issues related to autism. Let's all work together, and you know, it has to be a worldwide collaboration which can be created between different institutions across the world to solve this problem. And when we're talking about minorities, they are the biggest minority in the world today, the people on the autism spectrum. So let's build products which can really impact them. And we need a lot of startups to come and build you know, solutions in this space. I look at solutions which are having on augmented reality, virtual reality. We're looking at robotics, and artificial intelligence has really brought about personalization to the core to many of the startups and solutions which we can do. So all these things are going to change their lives, but we need a lot of startups to come and innovate in the space. And a lot of research has happened you know, in many universities across the world. So the research has to be converted into products, and that's where, you know, we need you know, research institutions, we need you know, government support, and we need you know, startups to build this whole ecosystem which can really improve the quality of life for people on the autism spectrum. So my whole thought process is, how do we get everybody together And COVID has taught us, that if we collaborate, we can solve major problems in the world. A vaccination which used to take 10 years to build can now be developed in 18 months. And now they're trying to do it in 8 months. So this is the sort of thing which we should all look at and collaborate and partner so that we can bring in new solutions for this community. I think we should look at how COVID is bringing across different sectors together to bringing solutions. That's what I'm looking at in this sector. And thanks, Akram, for having me, and great speaking to all of you. And I wish
Thank you.
everybody all the best, and stay safe. Take care. This
Thank
is the
you,
best
Bharat.
time for innovation. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Bharat, for joining us. Wonderful views from different perspective. We wish you stayed here a little far, but we will definitely have you in upcoming many programs to come.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I want to come to the panel. Dr. Sharma, if you want to come with your video and maybe share your views. The theme of the discussion is enabling ecosystems through collaboration and innovation. Startups are known for this, and this is the era of collaboration. No company, in fact, leave about startups, no big company today survive without collaboration. All the big companies are acquiring or investing in small companies to buy innovation so that their company can survive, because startups can give competition to big companies when it comes to innovation. And Zoom had done it. Zoom had, I think, killed the business of many such video conferencing platforms. And many companies have done that previously. Now, yours, because you are like the coaches of the startup ecosystem, and you are giving advices, suggestions to the people. Now, how do you think that different startups, whether they are in the manufacturing front, they are in the services front, or they are into technology, or whichever business they are, how can they use this as an opportunity, or can use collaboration and innovation to use them, or to use them as their competitive advantage to not only survive during the crisis, but also can thrive further? Just like Zoom thrived, a couple of 100 times during this crisis. Dr. Sharma, you can begin, and then we can come up together.
So I initiated Passion 2 decades back, and it was largely for the industry academic spin-off. And it was a big struggle. So, it was way ahead of time. Then 2006, in fact, the other accelerator programs started coming in USA, and it became more and more best practice assimilation through my PhD studies. And right now, what I am focusing on in bringing in n number of collaborators. So in this last whole 1 month, we have nearly 200 plus seniors all over India who have joined me. And I have multiple research topics. It could be in management, or it could be in manufacturing, anything related to startups. So we have research spin-offs happening. We have startups also coming up. So it is more important that we need to do more of collaboration. We are setting up entrepreneur cities within colleges, which is for free. And I'm trying to bring n number of ecosystems enabled through this particular platform Passion framework. The reason being, I was in one particular session with Wilgrow, and one of the challenges which Wilgrow is one of the impact fund initiatives, which is quite popular in India and globally also. So they were telling that we don't have any platform where one mentor from one ecosystem is known to the other ecosystem. So this is what we are trying to do, an aggregation and bringing the collaboration for creativity as a theme, to support more startups. And hopefully in the next 3 to 4 months, of course, with your support also, and we also have an dedicated radio channel, internet radio channel also, which we are launching. So we are going to give more and more opportunities to startups and researchers, and also senior members for collaboration.
Thank you. Trisha, if you can come in with the point. I want some real life case studies that how collaboration, how like maybe collaboration with some marketing companies, collaboration with some IT companies, collaboration with the different companies, how those kind of collaboration can boost business and give a huge support to entrepreneurship ecosystem at this important moment of crisis.
So Akram, right now, I don't think I have examples of collaboration at a very large scale, but what I can tell you what I am seeing right now in Nepal. And we did a very quick survey in towards the end of March when the lockdown had just begun. And when all the businesses were sort of shutting their shops, there was a huge sentiment that startups should come together and do something. Yeah, and some of those sparks or these sentiments are now trickling down into certain form of innovations as such. So I'll give an example. We work, there is an organization called TechSmart. They have created an app that enables startups to receive orders via WhatsApp. So they can just create their shop, and then the order comes, they will receive the customer information in WhatsApp, which means that the whole technological requirement for an organization to build an e-commerce platform is completely reduced, and it's available free at this point of time. So that's one collaboration, or that's one opportunity I'm seeing for startups to quickly get their customers engagement going on for them. Another thing that I'm seeing is that, including Blink Ventures, there are a bunch of organizations, investors, academic institutes, other incubation programs who have come together and created a pool of mentors. And the message was that don't be alone. If you are going through problem, the least thing that we can do is give you some advice, or you can speak to us and feel little better. And there was very simple questions like, my employees are working from home, how do I track their productivity? My employees have gone to village and I have to deliver the medical supplies to the customers. Yeah, so there were very simple problems, and sometimes you can't really solve these problems. You cannot get passes for people, or you can't really do anything. But just having that support system for the entrepreneurs also is far more crucial. Another thing that is emerging that I see is there are now aggregator platforms that startup themselves are creating. So if you know that the cost of delivering products delivering products is really high for an individual startup, so now the organizations who own tech platforms are coming together to see that if they can onboard other startups with small products and do like a combined delivery of products in a limited locations. So these are small changes that I'm seeing in the ecosystem in Nepal. And I'm very specific. Nepal is a very small country, and there are huge number of startups in Kathmandu, and we work closely with them. And this is what I'm seeing in Kathmandu, that people are banding together, trying to figure things out. I know many legal companies are giving their services free of cost. There are people helping in terms of asking how we can promote your services. So we see these small collaborations happening, and and smaller innovations coming out at this stage of point.
Thank you. Philip, I want to come to you with the same question. What are the kind of best practices or innovative approaches or models or collaborative, in the forms of collaboration or innovations, companies are adopting in US or in different part of the West to survive and also to thrive?
Yeah, it's a tough question to answer with a very specific example. I'm similar with Teresa that it's not easy to identify. I mean, you do see a lot of collaborative efforts around COVID related responses. So direct, investment theses around keeping a pandemic like this from being as disruptive as it was before. So there are economies coming together on this, and there are investors coming around, different foundations. So that's really interesting to see. I think that to like zoom out even further, the sort of macro challenge becomes a little bit more complex than just how do we keep a pandemic from happening. And I really loved Dr. Malik's comments on this. I think he really nailed it with his perspective. So I do believe that what we need to be doing is having a higher level conversation around long-term sustainability. I think to tackle the problem as specifically as we are in some ways is almost too focused, and maybe actually is missing out on understanding that problem. My hope is that from a globalization perspective, that the potential for distrust or prejudice, around certain locations, because now not only do you have some sort of unverifiable reason to be afraid of someone who's not like you or not from your country, now you have this sense that they could also be carrying a disease, right? And that is something that has already been used as a thread of dissent against immigration, but now it's become, you know, even more amplified in the United States. So the best thing that we can do as collaborators is to fight against not just the economic challenges that we face because of coronavirus, but the mentality and the mindset challenges that will arise from this, to really be focusing on it, not just expecting that it will work itself out through our efforts to make sure COVID doesn't happen again in this way, but to actually understand that the implications of the rhetoric that's been taking place in the United States in particular will actually be a stunt to collaboration. And so we need to be tackling that as well. And I haven't seen organizations banding together around that problem, at least that I'm aware of. Now, I'm sure that there's folks out there, and I'd love to be more involved with them, but it's something that we need to be looking at in the United States in particular, but I believe that it would be a global challenge as well.
Thank you. I want to come, Dr. Malik and Colin, you both can come. 2 or 3 specific questions I have, because if I keep asking to individually, it will take a lot of time. Whoever wants to start, you go and start, no issue. First question. This is an unprecedented crisis, hence needs unprecedented solution. And I think policy support, no doubt, has to be a priority. Now, I want to bring a case study from Germany. Germany is one of the startup hubs of the world, and the way Germany has supported the startup ecosystem is unprecedented. They have put 60% of their GDP into the economy, and like 2 billion euro they have put only specifically for these startups, along with a huge amount of funds to the public venture capitalist network, and then enabling different venture capitalists to come to the system. Talking about India is a complete different case study. We have 20 lakh crore rupees being invested. There is no specific guidelines I saw for the startups, and MSMEs, they have announced a lot, but I've seen the kind of support that we have. But I want views from you actually. What kind of policy support? Because you normally don't talk politics. You talk about the typical, a core business topic. But I want this voice coming out from you that here the policymakers has to support you, because if they don't support you, you are not only under pressure, but your inability of coping up with this situation will put a huge threat to the employment and in this ecosystem. Dr. Malik, what kind of specific in bullet points, immediate, policy support that we should expect from the government so that these startups should be saved from here?
Firstly, you talk about collaborations in America. Let me throw in some idea there.
Yeah.
When I launched my Halal Angels network, I was approached by a gentleman called Mr. Gopi from San Francisco. He does conferences, and he says, "Listen, buddy, I'm doing Funding Stack conference, and I was supposed to do in Napa Valley, but I'm doing on online now, and it's a captive audience of 5,000 people from the valley, which is very critical for startups." And he says, "Why don't we collaborate, and why don't we launch it in SF?" This thing, because SF is thinking about ethical finance and sustainable development. So when you say halal means sustainable development. So one collaboration happening there. Yesterday I was talking to a guy from Texas. His name is Usman. He has a company called Fursa Capital. He's into venture capital. We were supposed to have a half-an-hour meeting, but it went for 3 hours. He made a very fantastic point. In fact, we all know this, but he spoke it out. In Islam, there's something called Qarza Hasna. Qarza Hasna means a beautiful loan. You give it to somebody without expecting any outcome of it. Means paying the whatever the money you paid or a profit on it. So right now during Ramadan, he was talking about, instead of giving zakat and fitra, why don't we give businesses, irrespective of their religious background, give them Qarza Hasna, give them a loan, right? Don't depend on the government. And it's a fantastic thing. It's like peer-to-peer support. It's a community support. As Philip said, right now, everyone needs to support each other, right? And I was supposed to be in Shenzhen. There's something called a maker conference happened. Okay? When you compare with Silicon Valley and Shenzhen, Shenzhen is an open ecosystem. You plug in with each other. In Silicon Valley, if you don't know those people, you can't plug into the system, right? So maker conference thing is going to get very magnanimous because that's what Shenzhen became a huge, huge thing. Now regarding policies, why only we talking about startups? Why don't we talk about entrepreneurs? Because whether you're in business or whether you're in startup or whether you're in stage 3, wherever, businesses create jobs, businesses creates value, taxation to the government. So just remove the tag of startups because then it becomes a too shallow statement because I don't have good experiences with startups. 90% is just chasing for money, right? So when I was having a discussion with Gopi, Gopi said, Dr. Malik, there's a lot of businesses in the valley. They're doing 5 million, 20 million. They're doing they're doing gardening, they're doing plumbing, their heating system. They need money and they can give you cash right away when COVID returns back. So if I'm an investor, I'll throw in money where I can get a return back. So it's sustainable. That's one. Secondly, especially now in India, and I was talking about earlier, as Muslims, we should contribute back to the government of India's vision of 5 trillion, because if you take 5 trillion divided by 1/5, it becomes $1 trillion contribution. In times of crisis, everyone should stand together and create this viable solution. So this Halal Angel is trying to do, and small request to all these governments across the globe, please remove business license fees for 5 years now. Let people start business with $0. Like when I have to register a company in state of Illinois, I have to do $250 for LLC. Right now, I will rather use in buying stuff, and at least give tax breaks for some time. We don't need grants, we just need tax breaks and some kind of handholding. That's it.
Thank you. Colin, if you can come in, policy support and opportunities of collaboration. Colin, if you can hear us.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Go on, I'm here.
2 questions actually now for you. One is some case studies about collaborations and innovation, and the second is kind of policy support you expect from the government for entrepreneurs, as Dr. Malik says now.
Yes, absolutely. The ecosystem definitely needs support. And speaking from the African perspective, Africa has been, is described as an emerging market. So it's quite peculiar because what applies here might not necessarily be what obtains, in the West. Just like you rightly described, Silicon Valley, side by side, Shenzhen. I personally have been on tour in Shenzhen, and it doesn't look less developed than Silicon Valley. In fact, in some areas, you will even find more innovation in Shenzhen than you would in Silicon Valley. This is placing USA and China side by side, which is very different from what obtains in Africa, especially away from South Africa. So you have an ecosystem that is sustained by itself, mostly self-funded, or driven by a few venture capital companies, and very, very, very low in capacity. And government didn't pay a lot of attention when we talked about public policy. But right now, with the disruption that has taken place as a result of the COVID-19, you find out that Africa, the policy corridors have become closer to the ecosystem operators, the startup operators. For instance, in communication, you realize that the government needed a lot of support from the tech, from the ecosystem, getting involved in communication, teleconferencing, telemedicine, remote assistance, and all that. And that brought about the need case for engagement with the startups. Our startups also, we've been involved with the drone for the first time. The government is inquiring on collaborations on development of drone technology. Much more utility was also made for AI. Here in Africa, and data was of essence. Things that didn't used to matter. And right now, yes, there's a lot of collaboration and beyond the COVID emergency, you're going to see more efforts being made by the policymakers to support the ecosystem, given the relevance that COVID has brought to to the startup ecosystem. So I see collaboration, more collaboration, B2B collaborations, and government to companies, government to individual collaboration, which will be these are going to be the outcomes and the aftermath of the COVID pandemic.
Thank you. Trisha and Philip, your suggestion on the policy support front. Any specific, just like Dr. Malik said that the license, it should be license free, $0 license. Any other specific support that you can expect or you would like to demand from policymakers?
Should I go first?
Yeah, please.
So I think more than making more policies or allocating more funds, government should focus on making it more accessible, because the government can give a number and say this fund is available for all the startups, all the entrepreneurs, for agri sector. But how do we access that? The one problem that I see right now with entrepreneurs or with startups is that even though they know that this opportunity exists, they don't know how to access it, how to apply for it. And even though there are other players who step in, I think if there is a clear protocol for how people can benefit from these policies or these provisions that the government is making, it will be a huge, huge difference in the life of the entrepreneurs. So that's my only input actually over here.
Very important point. Philip.
Yeah, I apologize for my somewhat non-answer and deflection of this, but I kind of agree with Triza. I also, was thinking about Bharat and his example, using the example of the community of people who have autism and the lack of representation. I think that, just like we have like flat earthers, I think that we have like a real problem with flat knowledge in America, where it's gone through, like, even if you become an expert in something, you still are an expert based on the information that has been, assembled from experts who don't represent oftentimes the population of people of which they are writing about. And so you have a problem where the knowledge becomes, feels dynamic, but is one-sided. You have the people who are making policy thinking that they are thinking dynamically, but are one-sided based on the thread of knowledge that they've been given. And so until we have that representation among policymakers, it even feels like somewhat inappropriate for me in my position and who I am to say, well, this is the policy that's right for the people, because the people who are not being served by the policies don't look like me. And so I actually do believe that it's important, like we have a role in actually seeking out the perspective of those who are being most affected by these challenges, to be the ones to help to come up with the ideas around what policies should be made. So if that's what I could be asking, it would be, we need to be changing who our policymakers are in general in America, first and foremost, to make it more representative in order to make the policies work for everyone.
Thank you. Final question, and the most crucial one. Cash is the blood for startups and entrepreneurs. There is no replacement of revenue or cash or money in whichever form it comes, whether it comes from venture capitalists, whether it comes from clients, whether it comes from loans, whatever it is, we need cash. Startups need cash to survive, to fill their own expenses, to meet their own expenses, to pay salary to their employee, to pay rent to their firms, and all the possible things. Now, what specific in bullet points, your message and advice to startups? Because, politicians are colorless people. I often call them like they don't have colors. They change colors with the situation. They can use any positive, any negative things to survive or for their survival. So we cannot trust them, especially for the poor and emerging countries politicians, because they are even worse. Advanced countries politicians are a little better because they are better in delivering what they are asked of. So now coming to this point, the entrepreneurs have to survive. Here, bullet point guidelines or advice to entrepreneurs, how can they manage or find cash to survive here? Maybe Dr. Malik, if you want to come first.
I have an experience of never raising money from anyone. When I lost $100,000 in America during the subprime crisis, I started driving a cab and building my business. So there's no excuse for anyone to do business. Again, I don't categorize myself as a startup. I am an entrepreneur. So whether I drive a cab, whether I do anything, I'm a hustler, right? What's happened is this is like an opium addiction to all these startups. I need funding, I need grant. So they should get away from this funding addiction. They should be hustler. They should be driving a cab. They should be doing labor jobs. Because if you're very passionate, you'll find an angle to build your business. It will take time. When you use your own money, you will start saving more money. Like I've seen startups, when they were not funded, they were smoking, 5 rupee cigarettes. And suddenly when they got funding, they were smoking cigars, because that's not the money. When it's your own money, you look at all the successful people, like why Mark Zuckerberg or, Stevie Jobs wear similar clothes, because they save money. Look at Warren Buffett, right? They all save money. So my contentious issue with all these startups is, don't look at funding, look at how you can build your business. When you start building business, people will walk in with suitcases of money. Instead of chasing time, running and trying to get some investor, try to build some clientele, try to build some customer. The more customers walk in, your more valuation goes up.
Excellent. I think brilliant point. Dr. Sharma, if you want to come, Colin, I want to bring you. So may I request you to come in here? Bullet point suggestions to startups. Colin, if you're there.
Yes, I'm here. Yes, I'm here. Basically,
My might die out. So if I get disconnected, thank you so much for calling me.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. Yeah, Colin, please.
Great. Yes, this is the fourth industrial revolution, and right now we don't have the code. We don't have the codes. Yeah, we don't have the manual. There are no rules yet. We make the rules. So it's a reset of the economy. It's a reset of policy, of everything we've known before now. It's a new day. It's the new norm, the new normal. Everything we advocated for about remote work, about telemedicine, about AI, about drone technology, how these things happen. Everything was unleashed, naturally. I mean, by default. And here we are surviving the COVID. And I think, so like I said, it's a reset, it's a new day. So there are no rules, actually. It means that funding could be gotten from anywhere. I mean, I'm hustling like the other gentleman, so I said, I've been hustling, man. 2 months of hustle in the house, home hustle. You know what I mean? So we had that hustle. Everyone was at home in the whole world, hustling. So behind that hustle, we were writing the codes for the new day. I did mine. I had a great hustle time. I mean, this was like the most significant moment of my whole life. I'm witnessing history right in front of my TV. I'm watching CNN. I'm watching BBC. I'm juggling to Bloomberg. I'm trying to know what's happening with CNBC and in my own home country as well. Here, there's panic. The other side, there's people dying. The other side, you have family. You have to care. You have to tell them what's going on because you are the tech guy. Everyone comes to you asking you, hey, Professor Tech, tell us what's going to happen tomorrow. How many people are going to die tomorrow? When is COVID going to be over? You have to be the one answering those questions. The TV guys, the reporters are asking you, what do you think? There's a lot of conspiracy theory. There's a lot of things going on. What am I trying to say? Our mentality for the past 3 months has been really, really impacted. How to deal with fear, how to deal with uncertainty, how to deal with investors whom you're not sure they're going to come through, and you have to use your entrepreneurial, wisdom and balance to balance what decision to take. It wasn't really, an easy time to do things, but we got it done. That means that we have got a new level of resilience. Anyone who witnessed this in history, something has happened, a big impact. And that means that we go back to reassess our strategies and our methods, and knowing that if there's a pre-COVID and there's a post-COVID. Pre-COVID is invalid. Post-COVID is the real deal. So post-COVID says, there's COVID money, for instance. As a strategist, I stopped to talk to my investors about anything because I knew that they too were going through the same process that I was going through, the same thought process. What's going to happen after this? So I left them alone. and I started to look at COVID money. There's a lot of funding coming from everywhere, especially, into Africa, where I am. We saw Jack Ma money coming, Dangote coming, funders coming from all over the world. So I started to study, where are these fundings going to? What would they be used for? And in the news, I see they just want to give people food, they want to do testing, they want to do medical emergency, basically. There's nothing economic in Africa. It's not even part of the conversation. They're not talking what is going to happen to the entertainment industry, which is very lucrative and vibrant. There are no conversations about education. The kids at home, there's no capacity to deliver education to their homes. So I realized that these are spaces where I'm working. I'm already developing. I was already at the moment, I was already developing an e-learning platform, which I was planning to deploy maybe in the next couple of months, long time later, maybe 7 months later. And I realized, the kids are going to be at home. They're going to need this. So there's a need case for this. That means I need to fast track the development of my e-learn, so it should be ready and I can deploy it at this time. And to deploy it at this time, all of this funding that are coming in and they're just going into face mask, medical, why don't you apply? Why don't you get across to these people, CDC and the African Union and the government people, and say, you're going to need education for the kids at home. So you need to come patronize us. All right. So we got in touch with all these people, the government people, and they got interested because right now there's a need case for it. For entertainment, I already set up, like I said, a startup that's building, developing virtual reality, augmented reality, all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, okay, this is time to fast track that. So we go to the entertainment community and say, you guys are not going to have a show, you're not going to have concerts, you're not going to have your clubs, you're not going to have performances for many months. You're going to be home, not performing, you're going to be losing money. What's going to happen? We have virtual reality where you can actually bring on your shows, bring on your museum, and you can still make revenue. So then we now start discussing funding. So what I'm saying is in the post-COVID, or rather COVID has actually taught us that it is about being creative with your funding sources. The gentleman said he would do a cab, he would hustle. That's true. Entrepreneurship is about hustling. It's about converting a product into a commodity that people can purchase. So however you got that conversion done, it's not what matters. What matters is you got to use your entrepreneurial skills to convert that product into a commodity that people can exchange value for. And that's what COVID has done, to us.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Philip, bullet point advices to the entrepreneurs or startups.
I think I would say that the best thing that you can do is seek new forms of resilience and sustainability in your business, among your teams, and of your mind. I think that's going to be the only path forward that's going to make sense. Yeah.
Thank you. Trisa, your final and closing comment basically on this, and with some bullet point advice.
Sure. I actually have 3 bullet points. One is the advice that I give to entrepreneurs right now is look at your finances right now and see what are the things that you can remove from it. Like what are the expenses that you can let go and let go of them. Like right now, you don't need marketing. You should preserve your funds for long-term sustainability. So see elements that you can actually remove and the things that are really crucial for your organization. For example, you need employees, because getting good employees in a startup company is difficult. So you want to retain them. Maybe you don't need the rents. Maybe work from home is the thing to go for future. So remove the aspects that you do not need long-term in the organization and find innovative ways to still make it work. The second advice that I have for organizations is if you're a startup and you really desperately need funds to survive through this period, then there are always 3 F's: friends, family, and fools. And trust me, there are always people who get moved by passions of entrepreneurs and they do invest. But the basic problem with many entrepreneurs is they look at the common places where the funds are available. It's investors, it's VC funds, it's other funding companies. So these people are getting bombarded and targeted by many startups, and that's not the place you should be going. You should be going to people who can have a stake in your company, who know you really well, and can, because of the faith, would be ready to invest in you. And there you do see that the initial funding when you're bootstrapping actually come from these 3 avenues, and these are 3 avenues that would be there. And the third advice, which is not really related to finance, is focus on mental health. Because as an entrepreneur, you are sort of juggling too many things, right? You have uncertainty going on, your employees are insecure of their job, and you have your money issues. So while you're doing all of this, then please ensure that mentally you are taking the right steps to ensure that long-term sustainability is not financially, but long-term you are also preserving yourself to run the company in the long run. Yeah, so these are 3 advices I have.
I think excellent. Thank you so much, Philip. Thank you, Trisa.
Is it okay if I just add one last thing? Because
Yeah.
I feel like I've
Please,
spoken
please.
at a philosophical level, and we actually do work on sales in particular. I do believe that the adaptation that you need to make to your sales strategy for what's going on today will serve you long term. So I would lean into whatever decisions you need to make around, empathy building, trust building, relationship building, that you have to go the extra mile because of how sensitive everyone is about things right now, is actually what you should have been doing in the first place. So I would lean into that new strategy and that adaptation.
Thank you. We had Philip, Trisa, Dr. Sharma, Tosif Malik, Collins, and Bharat Sharma joining us for this important discussion. The final conclusion and remarks from my side, I wanted Dr. Sharma to give. Number 1, you are entrepreneur and you are young always at heart and mind. You are energetic. You don't stop for any reason because you find opportunity in crisis. Whether policymakers help you, doesn't matter. Whether venture capitalists give you money, it doesn't matter. You are a fighter and you always fight. You are a fighter. You always fight with this situation. So there's no one. I like Colin's point that it is a reset time. It's a new industrialization. So if it's an industrial revolution and there are no rules, that means again you have the trump card to play here. So what new avenues you bring here to fight is how you decide and how you plan. I think there are countries, I have seen some countries making strategies 15, 20 years, reading the future, they make strategy today. I think we as an entrepreneur, we also have to, become that level of futuristic, that let us study next 50 years of business nature and then adapt some strategies today so that we can survive next 15 years. Thank you so much, Philip, Trisa, and Collins for here joining us for this important discussion. Viewers, keep watching the Policy Times. If you have not subscribed to our channel yet, do subscribe our YouTube and Facebook channel. Thank you.
Thank you, Akram.
Thank you so much.